The American politician David Kildee once said, "The establishment of free trade agreements is a critical and progressive step towards greater economic integration and is continually important in our increasingly globalized world." And it is with those ideas such as economic prosperity and international collaboration that I negate resolved. A significant tariff on imported goods from Mexico would be a good policy for the U.S. economy. My first contention for negating this resolution stems from the potential security consequences a tariff could have on the United States. Eduardo Porter, writer for the New York Times, explains in his 2017 article that Mexico is using deterrence to make the United States believe that an increase in tariffs would hurt America in return. He explains how having free trade with Mexico is vital to the United States, and this is backed up by the president of Mexico himself, who says, quote, "We will bring to the table all the things. Trade, yes, but also migration and themes of security." The notion that an unfavorable trade deal towards Mexico could spill over to other parts of the relationship is quite worrisome for the United States. This truly begs the question of, will Mexico continue to fight international terrorism and fight the illicit drug trade? The idea that a significant tariff could spill up to other aspects of the U.S.-Mexico relationship paves the way for two impacts on the U.S. economy. The first is the illicit drug trade. Nina Lockerty writes in her 2016 Guardian article that U.S.-Mexico collaboration in high-profile drug busts have decreased the drug flow into the United States. As noted before, a tariff on Mexico decreases the potential collaboration and potentially allows for drugs to run rampant throughout the United States. The influx of drugs into the U.S. will have devastating economic impacts, as the EU drug market report identifies that drug trafficking interferes with economic activities in a plethora of ways. For example, through large sums of money being generated from illicit trade which can't be taxed, it creates corruption along with creating money laundering. These are all harmful to the state of the U.S. economy. The second impact is terrorism and the way that it affects the U.S. economy. Without Mexico's help, the threat of a terrorist attack in the United States will rise exponentially. This is impacted out for the U.S. economy by Sean Ross, the Director of Business Development at Financial Post, who says that the effect of a terrorist attack on the economy is multifaceted. The first is the direct economic destruction of the country. For example, tariffs will destroy existing plants, transportation networks, along with sheer economic resources. The impact doesn't stop there, as a terrorist attack also leads to increases in uncertainty in the market, leads to decreased tourism, and decreases in trade. All of these are vital to the economic stability of a state. My second contention for why we should negate a tariff on Mexico is because of the disastrous effects it will have on everyday Americans. Patrick Gillespie, a writer for CNN Money, explains how an international tariff on Mexico will have unforeseen impacts on the average American. The first is that over 6 million U.S. jobs are dependent on trade with Mexico. Scholars indicate that if a tariff were to be imposed, these jobs would be in jeopardy. The second reason is that a tariff will drastically increase the price of average goods. Specifically, businesses related to selling cars and electronics like Ford and Best Buy will be hit substantially hard. This will in turn hurt Americans, as it will raise the prices of goods from those companies, which will result in less net beneficial transactions and thus hurt the overall state of the economy. This is empirically proven by an Obama-era tariff against Chinese tires that ended up causing more harm than good. As prices increased, people were let off, and thus any benefit from the tariff was reversed. My third and final contention is less of an argument in terms of negating the resolution, but rather acts as a filter for how you should view my opponent's arguments. Jay Chitteran, a policy advisor for Third Way, explains the history of U.S. protectionist measures such as tariffs and explains how they have failed to reach their end goal. Starting with the McKinley tariffs, trade was diverted away, unemployment increased, and GDP also decreased. This was continued in the Ferdinand-Macomber tariff, which led to trading partners retaliating against one another with even more tariffs, which led to a decrease in U.S. exports. To most recently, the country of origin labeling program. This failed trade restriction was aimed at Mexico and Canada with the goal of consumers buying more goods from the United States, but this inevitably failed. Robert J. Samuelson goes on to explain how there are more economic factors that inhibit economic growth. In his May article, the Harvard graduate explains how factors such as number of workers, how long they work, and productivity are also determinants of economic growth. Overall, while it may be possible that a tariff might lead to short economic growth, these would be reversed by job losses and price increases. And due to that, an imposition of tariffs on Mexico is outweighed by the harms that it would do to our economy.